Hello, good evening, and welcome to The Majority Show. My name is Mark Devlin, and this is Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist show. Broadcast out every week on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m, and we are glad to have you here with us tonight. I'm here with the co-hosts, Mary Devlin and Derek. David. Why did David Griffiths? It's because your position's in the wrong place. There you are. Okay.
Right.
Good evening, everyone. It doesn't take much to throw them off, I have to say.
Okay, right.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, anyway, David. Derek, what do we have for me? What do you have for us today?
Very even. Right. Okay. Tonight, I will be asking, is Shona Robinson right to blame a culture at headquarters for the demise of the SNP?
And I'll be discussing Humza Yousaf's plans to reset with Scottish businesses, if there are any left.
Right, and I'll be asking, after the rest of her husband and the SNP's treasurer, when is Sturgeon going to be arrested?
And as usual, I'll be handling all your comments, so please keep them coming. And if you can keep them short and snappy, I'll try to get as many up on the screen as I can.
And of course, we will have Zimmer of the Week. So we will be back in just a moment with all that good stuff. Right, so before we start, I have an ongoing apology to any of you who are trying to get in touch with us through the Facebook page. We still have not been able to get any access from it, despite every day talking to Facebook, who just keep saying, well, we're doing stuff with you, we're trying to help you. So it's a real problem. Anyway, we hope that in the next few days, whenever, been 2 weeks already. We hope that they can get it fixed. Anyway, in the meantime, if you are a regular Facebook user, it's always best to go and subscribe to our channel on YouTube.
And we'd like to say a big thanks to UK Union Voice and United Against Separation Facebook pages, where many of you are watching from tonight. And I'd like to give a little special shout out to Craig Hunter, who was so excited for this week's show. He was ready and waiting last night when he realised it was only Tuesday. So we do hope that Craig is joining us tonight.
Yes, and of course, guys, wherever you are, please like, share, comment, tell your friends. Extend the reach of the show at the click of a button.
And a huge thank you also to everyone who subscribed to our YouTube channel. We have over 1,000 subscribers, which is fantastic, gives us lots of nice little benefits. But of course, we need more. So please subscribe on YouTube and ask your like-minded friends to do so also.
Oh, that's very good. Did you add that like-minded friends?
I did, yes, like-minded friends.
Okay, and thanks to all of you who have already bought Abolish Holyrood t-shirts. We just actually added the Abolish Holyrood mug, which I'll try and show you. Oh, here it is. The Abolish Holyrood mug to the store. And in addition to that, we also have the new They May Take Our Lives, but They Will Never Take Our Camper Vans t-shirt, which is a special limited edition that is going out. You can wear that and have a laugh with your nationalist friends or otherwise. Anyway, we also have actually, come to think of it, we have some these nice ones that we did. Some people were asking, or some ladies were asking, do we have more ladies designs? We have this here in some quite nice colours. It's I Love Scotland Too Much to Be a Nationalist shirt, quite pleasant. That one is there. Now, if you do have a request for something you'd like to see in a t-shirt design, we can do that actually. So please let us know, send us an email or what have you on social media.
We have a suggestion here from Daz Fulton. He's saying, arrest Sturgeon shirt set.
Oh,
very good idea.
It was very topical.
Yes, that's very good. So yes, we might put them up, try and get them on as soon as we can. So see, that's how it works. Feedback already. So please, if you can get one of those t-shirts, a little bit from the sale of each one goes to help our fight against toxic nationalism. Okay, we have a lot to talk about on the show today, not least of which is the continuing bad news for the SNP now. So it makes us all extremely happy. Can you remember the days when the Nationalists were laughing at us, or not even at us, just at the UK government being such a shambles? Whether you're a Tory or not, it doesn't really matter. They're just a shambles of 3 prime ministers in a short time, all this nonsense about cake and it just going on and on and on. And now we have this, the tables have turned. Recently, of course, we had Peter Murrell arrested. We had the secret motorhome exposed. And today we had Colin Beattie, or yesterday was it? Yesterday, Colin Beattie was, who was the treasurer of the SNP, was arrested. Now that means that not Nicola Sturgeon, where is she? That means that Humza Yousaf is now the treasurer. So, David, you any thoughts on how this is going?
Well, it seems very clear that there is only one major person left who had any kind of financial control over the party, who has as yet not been arrested, and that's Nicola Sturgeon. And it seems now that the precedent has been set very clearly. Colin Beattie is arrested, and nobody's waiting for him to be convicted or otherwise. He's stepped down. He's resigned. Similarly, Nicola Sturgeon, when she's arrested, she must do the same, resign. Absolutely. Leave the party, resign as an MSP. The precedent's very clear. But I mean, what it does strike me is the fact that Humza Yousaf, anything that happens just now and any issue that must be managed or led, he's saying, oh yeah, I'll do that. Oh yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Why not is the First Minister acting as the Treasurer? Why isn't, for example, the Finance Minister acting as the Treasurer? Wouldn't that make more sense? I mean,
yes, that would make more sense, really. Yes, I noticed that, and it seems to be a meme that's coming up at the moment, as that it's he's jack of all trades.
Yeah, absolutely none, indeed. But particularly when we know that Humza Yousaf fails at every single job he has had. I mean, this list is remarkably unimpressive, anything but impressive, in fact. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a dreadful, dreadful time for them. It's probably about 2 weeks, I would say that's right. We'll come on to some of the little whispers I've had, and I'm sure we've all had, but I think it is clearly going to happen, and I think everybody knows it's going to happen. So, yeah, just let it happen quickly, please.
Yeah, well, some people are saying, well, she's too powerful and all this type of stuff. She's made a deal, all this type of stuff. I don't really see that. If she'd made a deal, then she'd have made a deal for her husband.
Well, yeah, I know that. I've been involved in many of these discussions. If you look back to, let's say Watergate, for example, Nixon was up to his ears in Watergate, and what happened? All of his guys went to jail. John Mitchell, John Dean, Ehrlichman, Haldeman, various others went to prison.
Yes, all the president's men, indeed.
Exactly, all the president's men, indeed. Nixon was pardoned by Ford. Ford pardoned him, and he didn't go to jail. So I suspect that where that's coming from is powerful people have a habit of being able to get deals struck. I mean, I'm sure you guys watched The Wire. I'm sure you people did. I've never spoken to you about it. But if you remember in The Wire, he had Maury Levy, who was the lawyer for all of the Barksdale drug gang, and then for Marlowe's drug gang. And he would just get them off the most appalling crimes just by doing a little bit of horse trading. So I don't know how much.
Yeah, but I don't know what she got to trade.
Yeah,
I mean, she's not in a particularly strong position.
I don't actually think it's that, guys. I think it's that people don't really have the stomach for seeing their leader, or the former leader put in jail.
Yeah.
I think there's a kind of I don't know, what would you say? Just people have the feeling that shouldn't really happen to the person at the very top. Yeah,
but then on the other side of that is that no one is above the law, right? And that's what happened with the Nixon thing. And it's not necessarily a parallel, but Nixon, of course, was trying to say that he was the president. So the president could do whatever he liked.
Presidential decree and all the rest. If the president does it, it's not illegal, as he said to David Frost. Yeah.
So this is but Nick Sturgeon isn't really in that position. She doesn't have really that much power to
have leverage.
Well, I mean, what is leverage? Leverage is you can do something for someone else.
Yeah.
But what can she do now that she's out of power? And what can she do when she's when all her associates are under active investigation? I I think sometimes our side likes to think that give Nicola Sturgeon more gravitas, more power than she actually has. I mean, she's the leader of a devolved, she was the leader of a devolved administration. It's not really a big role. And okay, she can maybe pull things, but the more she tries to pull things, if she was even inclined to do that, surely that would be cause trouble, even more trouble later on.
Yeah, very possibly. That's true. Yeah, I take the point entirely. She doesn't appear to have much of a hand here. I mean, she could, I guess, say, okay, well, I'll tell you exactly what happens if it'll get me off being arraigned and taken into custody and all the rest of it. I think Mary's right. The people in America didn't want to see their president jailed. They didn't really. I mean, the people who hated Nixon did. Yeah, but it's a terrible look. It really is. But then again, you look back, the former First Minister, he came very, very close to going to jail, and for some pretty appalling crimes. So she can't exactly say, oh, because of the office I formerly held, that I must have some.
I just don't think the office is that
that's
strong.
True, David. I
think there's a big difference in United States office of the president, which is a massive amount of respect and so on. Then as I say, leader of a devolved administration. Okay, so Humza has come up with this. You'll check this front page here. You can't judge Nicola on what happens to her husband.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that seems to be a bit like, well, why is this the strategy? They spent all this time war gaming it, and they're like, okay, this is what we're going to come up with. We're going to say it was all Peter's fault. It was nothing to do with Nicola. It's like, well, they're married, their husband and wife.
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, last week Humza threw the treasurer under the bus as well, because in fact it was Blackford at the weekend. Oh yeah, have you seen the figures? Well, no, really, that's down to the treasurer. And I thought, it sounds like the treasurer's in trouble here. So sure enough, and 2 days later, the treasurer's arrested. So yeah, they would have no compunction whatever about blaming Morell. I have no question they would do that in a heartbeat. So yes, it could be. We don't know.
It's a bit like that Spider-Man meme, isn't it? They're all just kind of
exactly.
You're the one to blame, and it's circular, and that's why I say as well. Some people are calling for an election, so don't stay away from that. Let's just keep them pointing the fingers at each other for as long as they possibly can, and we'll come to that. We'll come to a little bit more of that in a second.
Okay, so someone's asking. May is asking. Maybe she's saying maybe Nicola Sturgeon is going to be a witness for the prosecution if it goes to court.
Exactly.
That seems a bit unlikely, doesn't it? But it's got it's got all the hallmarks of quite a drama, hasn't it? Then, if some of you probably have seen the movie Witness for the Prosecution, and its turns and twists, and if it was like that, you'd be like, well, okay, I do want to see a movie. If she ends up there testifying against her husband, it seems slightly unlikely, to be honest. But you never know. These are certainly crazy times. Okay, moving on, are the SNP about to go bust? There are rumours going on that there is a very large deficit in the 2022 accounts. We know about Peter Morrow putting his loan in. I don't know if he got it back or not. Maybe you can clarify that, Mary. And Humza Yousaf previously told journalists, we are not close to bankruptcy. That's something I've read in some social media circles, but no, the party is solvent.
Well, isn't that a huge reassurance for us all? Well, we were told in one of our little groups, guys, as you know, we were told this week of a banking source from a particular bank, which was named, which they are talking about a massive, what they call a deficiency in the SNP's accounts. I mean, these are clearly serious times. They are very short of money. Obviously, they haven't even got auditors. Humza keeps saying he's desperate to appoint auditors. Everyone who's asked about this says, oh, yes, we're going to appoint auditors. When? You've got about 7 weeks. When are you going to do it? You've been trying for 6 months. How do you know you're going to get some in the next 7 weeks?
I mean, surely no one's going to take it on if they think if the company or the organisation is under criminal investigation.
We've been asking around, haven't we? Yeah. And what we're being told is that it's going to be well on nigh impossible for the SNP to find auditors, because if you think about it, I mean, auditors are very professional people, and I imagine they're very conservative by nature. So no auditors want to be involved with this kind of high profile, excuse my language, but shit show that's going on. That's not what they do. I
mean, the only thing I would add to that is they might get some auditors, but I can't see the auditors clearing their accounts. I think they would qualify their accounts without question, in which case they would cover themselves, because that's what auditors do, of course. Yeah. They might be able to appoint somebody, But they won't get somebody to say, yes, your accounts are clean by July. Not a chance. Not a chance. So not while there are criminal prosecutions pending. So that won't happen. So yeah, they are not going to have a clean set of accounts this year. Not a chance. It's not going to happen. So yeah.
But doesn't that mean that if they can't file their accounts, they can't file with the Electoral Commission, they can't show the spending? That means it's the end of the party. I mean, there was some speculation over the past few days when it seemed in social media that the SNP MPs and MSPs were taking SNP tag off of their bios, or the profiles. So that seemed very strange, and perhaps they had been alerted to something, or perhaps it was just a little wave of things that sometimes goes through organisations. But it did seem a little bit weird. And I mean, what is going to happen? I'm actually going to go forward a little bit. And what do you think would happen if the party is wound up? I mean, do you think it would be a new party, David?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're quite right. We talked about this last Sunday, a few of us did, when it looked like every senior SNP figure was taking the word SNP out of their Twitter biography. Some very strange stuff happened. You had Ian Blackford, who had previously had not only the name of the party, but his old job on his Twitter biography. That disappeared. Mary Hunter, who's played at being Sturgeon's Man Friday for years, she took the name SNP out of her biography, and then later that day they were both back. So something very, very odd was happening there. I've heard somebody.
I remember going round probably.
Exactly.
So like that.
Somebody said to me today it was because anybody who's felt to have been not sufficiently pro Humza in the leadership election was told, you get that name at SNP off your Twitter bio. I have no idea if it's true, but it's just so many rumours right now, hard to say. But yeah, definitely something strange happened. What would happen in the event that the party went bust? Well, I'm not sure if a political party can post qualified accounts. I don't know. Actually, I'm not financially savvy enough to know the answer to that. But if they were told, right, we're going to have to deregister you as an electoral body, they would have to form a new party, certainly. And that, I think, is what people thought was happening last Sunday. You remember all that stuff about the Scottish Independence Party, which has apparently been registered that day, and people were thinking, my God, is this happening now? So it was a real, that really did look like something strange was going to happen. I think if the SNP folded, I don't think they'd ever get back together as a big party again. I think they would splinter. You've got Alba already. The Greens, well, they're different. They're just mental. But you've got Alba is already there. I think a new party would spring up, and the SNP would never be as strong again. I think.
No, certainly not. But the question then is, would people be able to defect? When we asked this question, I don't know if I've got.
But sorry, before we get to that point, doesn't it take quite a long time to actually register as a new political party?
Well, as we found, exactly, as All for Unity found, it's supposed to take 6 weeks or 5 weeks. It took us like 6 months because. For a start, they'll come back. If you try and put the word alliance in your name or unity or anything like that, they'll just say, not a chance. You're not having that. You're not an alliance at all. So, particularly if they try and say we're the National Party or something like that, it's very difficult. It's not at all as easy as you think. So, that could take a great deal of time. And where does that leave them?
It could take months and months. And what would happen in the interim?
Indeed. So, I mean, these are all questions, very technical political questions. Be very interesting.
As Alan Jack said, they run the risk now of losing their short money, which is to the tune of over £1 million.
Exactly.
Which is a big issue. And they can't just go like, here's a new party, and we'll just take all the members over. To the other party. That's not allowed.
No, it has to be an independent.
It would have to be completely at arm's length. I think so. That's going to be a big problem. Now, of course, they could just find auditors of some description, SNP friendly auditors. Possible.
Well, they haven't found them so far.
Well, that's a good point, actually.
So why do we think they'd find them now? I think what will probably happen is that it's a good possibility that maybe the Electoral Commission or some other official body will have to appoint auditors to them.
That's very possible.
I don't know. Well, it's possible.
Like getting a public defender. I think they'll get public auditors.
Right. Okay, we're going to come back again in a second. We're going to finish off this section with a few questions on whistleblowers and do we feel sorry for Humza Yousaf? Okay, so we're back. We'll see you in a second. I suppose it's a good opportunity as any to ask for your help to support the show throughout 2023 and with a donation. if you can, we have. If you'd like to donate, we have a graphic here. Actually, you can do is go to. The easiest way really is actually just to go to our website, but you can use that wee QR code there and make a one-time or monthly donation, which would really help the show. Okay, moving on. Do you feel sorry for Humza Yousaf? Yes. Oh, here we go. I've got this criminal investigation clip. We'll get that in a minute. Well, why don't you say what you think about it first of all while I get that clip ready, David?
Yeah, okay. So, do I feel sorry for Humza Yousaf? How can I put this? No. I would say not even remotely. I think he, you could say, wasn't it terrible that he's had this awful luck that he was going to relaunch his premiership, or whatever you call the first ministership, on the day that his treasurer gets arrested. Well, tough luck, but I think
that's events, dear boy, events.
Exactly, events, indeed. I mean, he's proved himself to be an unpleasant man. Certainly an untalented man who's never succeeded in any government role. It just looks like he has allowed his ambition to outstrip massively his ability. And on a personal level, you look back to that appalling way he had treated that nursery in Broughty Ferry. I mean, really, that was genuinely maliciously unpleasant.
Yes, it was.
He didn't get his kid in, so he was basically trying to put them out of business.
Appalling, absolutely dreadful. And yesterday he approached very aggressively one of his interviewers, and he just looks like a nasty little man. So no, I don't have a shred of sympathy for him.
Yes, well, he's under a lot of pressure at the moment, no doubt. He either knew what was going on and accepted the role anyway, or he didn't know what was going on and is a complete patsy, or somewhere in between, probably a mix of two. Probably didn't know knew a wee bit what was going on, but took it on anyway, and still a patsy. Yeah, that's great work there. Okay, this was him yesterday talking to the media.
Well, look, I can't comment on a live police investigation. It's clearly a very serious matter indeed.
Do you think he should from the party? Have you suspended him from the party or the group?
This is talking
I've said
to the
already
treasurer.
that people are innocent until proven guilty. That's the premise.
Will you take him off the Public Audit Committee in the meantime?
Look, again, I'll consider that. I'll have to speak to Colin Beattie. My understanding is he's still in the police station being questioned. Clearly, when he's off that, I'll need to have a word with Colin, not about the live police investigation. We can't speak about the detail of that, but clearly there are pertinent issues around his role, Public Audit Committee, and his role, of course, as the National Treasurer.
Are you surprised that he's been arrested?
Well, yes, of course I'm surprised when one of my colleagues has been arrested,
it's a regular occurrence.
Does this fit to derail what you're talking about here in Parliament this afternoon?
It looks a bit haunted here.
It's not helpful. Of course, I wanted to, and I will, I'm still determined, of course, to articulate what my vision is as a new leader and a fresh start for the government. So I'll still do that, of course, at 20 minutes past 2, and I hope that we can move on to speak about those issues. But look, I'm not going to take away from the fact that the timing of this is far from ideal.
Now, the police are obviously investigating past activities in the SNP. Can you guarantee that the party isn't operating in a criminal way right now and since you became leader?
Oh, certainly. I don't believe it is at all. No,
and that's the trap there. Yep. It was trapped into that one. Can you say that it is not organised, not working in a criminal as a criminal enterprise? No, it's not working as a criminal enterprise. Well, that's the headline, of course. Now, it's interesting that you can see there the press is, really up for it now. Yes. Sturgeon would have berated them and told them to F off pretty much in so many terms, but he's not got that luxury at all. I wonder if he's really angry actually at Nicola Sturgeon for leaving him in this ridiculous situation. It's almost a zero. There's no win in it, I don't think, for him at all.
Well, I'll talk about that, about the exactly what she has left later on in terms of the party and how people in the party are viewing her right now. But you saw it there. I mean, he's clearly floundering. You can see that he just doesn't really know what to say. And you're right also, in as much as the interviewers that are scenting blood, they don't feel in any way intimidated by Humza Yousaf the way they did either by Sturgeon or by Sam. And these guys both of them could have just blown half.
Another thing that's quite interesting about it is he's not really sending out any representatives. He's trying to do the one-man band thing as well that Nicola was able to get away with. But he should be sending out people like, you go out and answer this question here, because you're the whatever it is, the legal person for the party. It's not that complicated. But he's taken the whole thing, and of course, whatever he says he falls into some traps, and he's been saying the wrong thing. We've seen quite a few politicians been saying, just Humza, stop talking.
Yeah, quite exactly right. But I mean, when you look at some of his front bench, I mean, you saw it today. I'm sure you saw it today. You've got the Green people on there. Paul McLennan was on there. He gave some answer today, which was actually, it was just unbelievable. He was asked a question and he started just blurting the stuff out. You could hardly hear what he was saying. He was talking so quickly, just unillegible. It was just dreadful stuff. So he hasn't got really anybody particularly heavyweight to go out and talk on his behalf. Shona Robinson spoke on his behalf. And I'll come on to talk about that later because she talked a lot of Wibble also. So, I mean, I think that's half the reason he does this. He feels he has to do it. I mean, at least Sturgeon, she might have come out and spoken about a lot of stuff, but she didn't have a problem with her, didn't have any hesitation in leaving people to look after their own field of expertise, supposedly or otherwise. Humza, it seems, thinks, my God, I'm going to have to do a list myself. So, well, good luck, mate. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, this is an interesting point as well, is that this really has overshadowed any agenda that he may have. I mean, there's some policy things in there. Actually, I think Mary will talk a little bit.
I'll talk about some of those,
anyway, okay, now you have put out a call, David, for whistleblowers.
I have, indeed. Yeah, I've done this 2 or 3 times, guys, because I think we're rapidly approaching the stage where, if we're not there already, where SNP staffers, maybe SPADs, maybe even MSPs must be thinking, my God, it's going to be me next. I didn't do anything. Why? I don't deserve to go down with these crooks. So I've said on Twitter a few times, if you are an SNP staffer and you do feel concerned, worried, upset, if you feel you're maybe being pressurised or victimised, reach out. We'll never quote you, but come to us, talk to me, talk to any of us guys.
Sure.
We'll help you. That's what to do. I genuinely think that's the right thing to do. But I'm obviously, my motive in this is, one, to help people, but secondly, to bring this appalling party of government down and out of office. Because
I was going to talk to this a little bit there. I mean, there's still a lot of this, circle the wagons, and okay, these people over here are bad. Right? There's, it was Peter, right? Peter did it all, and it was Peter and Colin Beattie. Okay, maybe they did it all, and it's never us for voting for them or anything like that. You're keeping silent. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But did we talk about defectors already? Going to Labour. We ran a poll, which I don't seem to have, but we ran a poll and there were questions actually, and said, well, do you think anyone from the SNP would go to Labour? And the basic answer to that was that Labour shouldn't take them. And why would they? That's a good point. Yeah. Because, Labour is likely to win a lot of these SNP seats anyway. They can pick their own people instead of having a turncoat in the position. And in fact, so that would leave only the safest SNP seats. Those people, why would they move if they were safe? So it doesn't make much logic to think that people Labour.
It doesn't indeed. One thing I should just add there, guys, is what I was going to say. I mean, I quite agree with you about that. Why would Labour take these people? Why on earth should you? Because there's been so much opprobrium between the two parties for so long. I can see there being some movement across, not massive, but 1 or 2 I think will move from SNP to Labour. But just one thing I wanted to add, just on the subject of whistleblowing stuff, I do genuinely get people every day, 2 or 3 people a day telling me stuff. The latest one I got today was about a supposed leak emanating from what the person called within the justice system, and apparently the expectation is absolutely cast iron. She will be arrested, and
really?
That's what they're saying within. So my whistleblower, a friend, told me within the justice system is the thinking. Absolutely nailed on.
Well, I mean, there's lots of rumours go around, and we'll see if it actually comes to anything. If you do have any information, we'd be happy to hear it. It's unlikely. You never know. This is the thing.
I think she has to be arrested. I mean, if the other 2 have been arrested, then wasn't she acting treasurer for some of the time?
For a very short period of time, she was, but she's the only signatory. The only 3 signatories on the 2021-22 accounts. The last set of accounts they submitted were Beattie, Morell, and Sturgeon, and the others have been arrested.
Whether she actually gets charged for something's a different thing.
She's still have to be questioned. Absolutely.
Well, this is our followers. We did will Sturgeon be arrested? 81% of you think that she
81.9%.
Oh, that's right.
Nearly 82.
Yes. Wow. And underneath it says the real question is, if Nicola Sturgeon is arrested, how many glasses of champagne will you drink? And most of the people said it's bottles we're going to be drinking, not glasses.
Magnum.
I suggested we have a little crowdfunder for our champagne fund.
Yes, that's how that goes. Right, where are we at now? Okay, so we don't feel sorry for Humza Yousaf, particularly.
Not at all.
Whoever's got the voodoo doll, keep sticking the pins in, and we'll see how it goes. We are all enjoying this very much, of course, as bystanders. Sorry, not bystanders. And that's great stuff. If you would like to join the fun, please have a look at our shop and get some T-shirts. Abolish Holyrood is a conversation starter. You can annoy your nationalist friends with this. And of course, when they say that's anti-democratic or anti-Scottish, you can say, then let's have a referendum.
Quite right.
About it. Because we need to reclaim the narrative from these people. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. They're still so smug about their, and self-righteous about their noble endeavour to free Scotland or to break up the UK. We would say, of course. Right. Okay. Anyway, coming back in a minute or so, David is going to be talking about Shona Robinson. Is it
Robinson and her talk of a culture at headquarters. Very interesting stuff.
All right. We'll be back in a second.
Okay. So, as we've all seen, since Sturgeon left office, there has been something of a split in the SNP, in as much as some MPs and MSPs are quite happy to blame the state of the party and the turmoil of the party on the former First Minister. So during the party leadership campaign, we saw each candidate to certain degrees, even Humza Yousaf, taking some pot shots at Sturgeon and at the previous regime. Of which all of them were part, needless to say, but they didn't have a problem at the time. They just wanted to moan about it later when it looked like it was bringing some bad PR. Anyway, that's what happened. Now, this culminated in Humza Yousaf declaring, I think shortly after he was elected party leader, he said cheekily that I can assure you my wife will not be applying for the job of Scottish National Party chief executive. In other words, having a real dig at if you like, the nepotism of the previous First Minister and the chief exec being man and wife. But so that's on the anti-Sturgeon side. But on the other side, Sturgeon still does retain some loyalty of party figures. Most notably, I would say, the person I've talked about there, Shona Robinson, who is, of course, the Deputy First Minister, or Deputy Leader, I forget, I think she's probably both. Anyway, Deputy First Minister, I think she is.
Isn't she the Finance Minister as well?
Yes, which is the job that Swinney was doing. Interestingly, when Kate Forbes went off on maternity leave, Swinney was made Deputy FM and Finance Minister, and now she's been given both roles. Of course, that was just a temporary thing for Swinney, but obviously it's a full-time thing for Shona. Well, now Shona is most famous for being Nicola Sturgeon's university friend, in truth. She wasn't particularly good at when she was in charge of the health service, and she didn't do a great job at steering the Gender Recognition Reform Bill through Parliament either. But now, and she's, as Mark mentioned, very few people are sent out by Humza to talk. She's one of them who is. Today she was interviewed and she acknowledged problems in the party that clearly originated while Sturgeon was First Minister. Then she was asked, okay, well, these issues, if they arose when Nicola was in charge, does that mean they're her fault? And Shona said, of course, oh, no. I think, and she blamed instead what she called a culture that has been allowed to develop at SNP headquarters and in terms of the governance of the party. And when pressed on this, she said, okay, the interviewer said, well, what was this culture? And she said, well, it's a culture which should have been more open, more transparent, and people should have been able to ask questions. Quite incredible stuff for the Deputy FM who used to be right next to Nicola Sturgeon most weeks to say. So is this, what do you think, guys? Mark, do you think, could this be what's brought the SNP to the brink of implosion? A culture at headquarters which has turned bad? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'll always put everything back to nationalism itself, right? Yeah. So it's turn a blind eye to everything as long as you've got this other goal. So, and that allows people to, I think, to some extent, to centralize power. I mean, nationalism is a centralizing type of movement, of course. Yeah. So when power starts to get aggregated into a single person or even a cabal or people in the middle, then the other ones can't say anything about it because, well, the bigger goal, there's a bigger goal there. So that's what happens. It goes all through society, of course, in that case.
Yeah.
WheeshtForIndy is, of course, the example that goes out to the public. But if the public is wishting for Indy, then what's going on inside the party?
Quite.
Right. So there is that thing. People they say, well, that he's a, I know that he's a groper. I know that one is is not good at, is incompetent. I know that this one is a thief.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, but I'm not saying anything because these are the top people. If we say anything about them, then the whole movement's going to collapse. But it's still there.
Yeah.
So when we always said that nationalism is a brittle faith, and it only takes that one thing. It take a long time to get to this point, but when that final tap on Nicola Sturgeon's statue happened, the whole thing shattered, and then everything is exposed. As the expression goes, you only know who's not wearing swimwear when the tide goes out.
Well said indeed. Now, that leads in so well to what I was going to go on to say. I think I agree with everything you've said there. I think that's quite true. I've talked in the past on the show about being fed information from people who have got some links to the SNP or some knowledge of issues affecting them. And I've mentioned last week, and I've referred to this week on Twitter, an incident involving the SNP councillor drunk out his face, who apparently molested a female passenger on a coach. Now, this story was reported, as I said last week, to a very well-known SNP MP and a very well-known MSP. Now, I'm told that the MSP, who supposedly has some professional connection to the councillor in question, in as much as he's supposedly an advisor of hers, I'm told that she told the guy, if this story comes out, I can't defend you and you can't work with me any longer. So this is the culture I think Robinson was talking about, and certainly to what you were referring to, Mark. The culture is, never mind the victim, let's just make sure the story doesn't get out. And that's the SNP's priority. We've seen it all the time. Sunday we saw Sturgeon, that terrible video of her saying to people, effectively threatening colleagues.
Oh, yes.
We've got to be very careful not to say anything. And I would bet that we will see this statement that's just been read out in public this afternoon. And I mean, what? So she's saying, I know you're all going to leak this story, but you just watch what you're doing.
Yes, that's right.
So
but if you actually think about it a little bit, the victims, what you say is actually quite important, is that the victims are nobody cares about the victims. And in this case, if you imagine there's a whole cabal of people who are hiding stuff, who are the victims? The victims are the Scottish people.
Quite right.
Right, because we have been it's been hidden from us, and we expect. Well, don't expect, but we, in an ideal situation, we expect that there should be some transparency in our government. There should be some accountability in our government, whatever level that is. And this is just not that at all. This whole idea. I mean, anyone who's just come up with this WheeshtForIndy thing. They just no. That's not the way things work.
Absolutely.
That's we don't keep quiet when things are bad. We actually have robust discussions amongst ourselves, and we disagree, and with disagreement is actually what makes us strong.
Quite right, and it's and on that very basis, in fact, you've got so clearly the priority in terms of finance was not the parlous state of the finances, which Sturgeon clearly knew weren't right. It's just don't say anything about it. Just don't say anything. I don't want anybody to hear about this. Okay, fine. And similarly, well, I'm sure you remember Jordan Linden, the guy who was at one time the leader of North Lanarkshire SNP Council, left the council. He was made to step down. He then left the SNP amid claims of sexual misconduct levelled at him. I was told yesterday, I think it was, that his ex-SNP council colleagues who went to their boss when he stepped down and said, look, really, this guy shouldn't be in the party if he's behaving like this. His ex-colleagues, councillors, who are still sitting councillors, now face disciplinary action for supposedly bringing the party into disrepute by trying to get their colleague kicked out of the office. So office. It's just Blackford and Grady all over again. We all know how much I think about Patrick. Seriously, guys, if there's one thing that's gone wrong with the SNP, you can put your finger on it, is blaming the victim. Mary put it very succinctly earlier. That's exactly what they've done. Anybody comes to them with a problem, they don't want to know. They do not want to know the people who have come up with the problem. It's classic shoot the messenger stuff. That's what's going wrong with them, and you cannot carry on like that, because sooner or later it will all just fall apart as it's doing now. And I think it's a really big part of the reason for the SNP's very welcome collapse. And I think for once, incredibly, Shona Robinson was right. But yeah, quite amazing that they're acknowledging this. But what will they do about it? I don't know, because they're still issuing threats against people not to speak out and taking action against people who have spoken out. So real, blow.
And what Ian says is there in that last comment is, well, what does it make? What does it mean that people of Scotland supported this in the majority? Well, not majority of them, but a lot of them anyway, supported all this and were willing to go along with it.
Very
More
true.
on that in a little bit later. That's a good section there. David, we are going to come back in a second. Mary's going to talk about Humza's great reset. I'll put that in biggest inverted commas possible.
Ever seen.
With Scottish business. So we will see you in a second. Okay, Mary, off you.
Thank you. Yesterday, Humza Yousaf declared he wanted to, as Mark says, reset the relationship between the Scottish government and businesses all across the country. Yeah. So he started yesterday by delaying the hated bottle deposit return scheme, the DRS as we know it. It's been delayed for 10 months now until March 1st next year.
Does anyone seriously think it's going to come back after that?
No, I don't think that scheme is going to come back. Of course, is going to be introducing a scheme nationally, but no, I think
really all the UK. I'm just sorry to. It's quite early on in the segment, but the UK is going to look at this and go, I don't think so. No. Anyway, Mary, please go ahead.
Well, I mean, you see, I agree. I think that delayed means finished. I don't think it'll ever happen under Lorna Slater, certainly.
No chance.
And I don't think she should be let anywhere near anything that requires competence and anything that could cause any cost or damage to any industry or group. I think she's proven that she's completely useless and that she's a joke. But, that's just me.
Don't hold back there, Mary.
So instead of just accepting the scheme would never work, Humza and the Greens, of course, they chose to blame the delay on the UK government. I could not believe this.
Unbelievable.
They're saying it was because the UK government didn't approve excluding the scheme from the Internal Market Act. So, guys, do you remember just back at the beginning of March when there was that whole debacle when Lorna Slater was calling for Alistair Jack's resignation?
Yes.
And she accused him of blatantly misleading Parliament, is what she said, because he said that they hadn't even applied for the exclusion yet, and that was the beginning of March, and that he's basically being called a liar and they had to resign. And then she was totally humiliated when she had to admit that he was right.
She hadn't requested whatever it was. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So that was only about 6 weeks ago. Okay. But now they're saying, oh, well, they're trying to say something about the last 2 years, but they didn't even apply until 6 weeks ago.
Exactly.
So it's the usual, it's the blame culture, as you so much pointed out, David. And of course, as we know, they're always trying to blame Westminster, for everything that goes on. But I mean, everyone knows that these are just lies.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's it really to do with Westminster? It's nothing to do with them at all.
Well, they have to. Right. Well, they would apply in a timely fashion. You would have thought to get this exclusion.
I mean, that's just filling the form.
That hasn't been, the whole thing. And it hasn't been issued. But it's only been 6 weeks.
You don't give up on I don't know how many $1 million, $100 million pounds scheme just because you can't fill in a form. That's not the way it works. You would, if you really wanted it to work, you'd be negotiating and doing all of the stuff that's required to do that.
You would have applied on time, the other thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, look, we all know that the real reason that DRS has been delayed or finished is that it was a complete disaster. I mean, it was unnecessary. It didn't work. And everyone involved, from the top producers down to the smallest retailers and the general public, knew it was a complete disaster. So it's going to take an awful lot of goodwill and hard work for Humza Yousaf to try and reset with the drinks and the retailers industries in Scotland. After all the pain and the money that Lorna Slater has cost them, because these companies, the retailers, the producers, and so on, they've spent hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on this already.
Yes. Yeah.
And now they're being told, it's all on hold again. So as well as delaying the DRS, Humza also pledged to take a fresh look at the proposed bans on alcohol advertising and promotion. That's something that we've also talked about on the show before. That would have had a massive impact all across Scotland, from supermarkets and retailers to even sponsorship of sports events. So that's a welcome relief. He's only said that they're going to take a fresh look at it.
Yes.
Right.
Can
I just butt in?
Of course.
And it's got this thing about this. Why are they letting the Green? Well, this is maybe a pushing back in the Greens, but why did they let them have so much power in the first place? I don't really understand. It's okay. Maybe they would say they could get a vote that would protect them from a vote of no confidence.
Yeah.
Right. But the Greens would have voted with them anyway. So David, do you know anything think about this? Now, in the UK, wasn't it a thing that you had a vote of no confidence in the government, but you didn't have a vote no confidence in the person?
I think that's exactly right. I've never seen a vote of no confidence in an individual cabinet minister in Westminster, but we have seen. Well, Swinney was subjected to two. Two votes of no confidence. It's a puzzle. I mean, we spoke about this the other week. Why do the Greens have so much, if you like, leverage? Why are they given so much consideration? And I pointed out, they've helped get the budget through. They do every year. They help with the votes of no confidence. But really, they're certainly getting more than they're putting in right now, because you've got two dreadful quality cabinet ministers now, or government ministers, whatever you call them, secretaries or whatever you call them, both equally incompetent, and both have got ridiculous job titles, and one for the circular economy is something like that, and that's just a complete made-up rubbish. And what are they getting back for it? And this Humza kept getting quoted in one of these meetings saying, "Oh no, we can't drop this. I can't remember which piece of legislation it is, because that's a red line for the Greens." And I think who cares what the Greens do?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I don't understand about it. Because I was talking with Mary the other day about this, and it's like, okay, so if it's a red line for the Greens, then of course that means that the Greens are actually in power.
Yes,
and Patrick Harvey, I mentioned this, is the de facto
First Minister.
True. Right? Because he's calling all the shots.
That's right.
So what is stopping Humza Yousaf then saying, okay, no, right? When I said no to this, I said it's a delay, keeps Lorna inside, perhaps. But what's him not to say, no, this is rubbish, we don't want any of this stuff, it's destroying their credibility and destroying anyone who'd vote for them. So, but perhaps there's another reason. Perhaps they have something on them some other way.
Well, it could be. I mean,
it's possible.
It's possible. I mean, one area where the Greens are certainly not popular with the SNP is in Westminster, because in Westminster, the MPs down there, the SNP MPs down there, have listened to Sturgeon first off saying, yeah, it's going to be a de facto referendum. It doesn't really matter how many seats we win. It's all about the votes. And they're going to, what did you just say? I beg your pardon. And secondly, they're hearing all this nonsense about, we've got to look after the Greens. They don't care a monkeys for the Greens in Westminster. The SNP MPs couldn't care less, because it's in Westminster where it's strictly first past the post. Any votes to the Scottish Greens are votes that are being taken away from the SNP, is the way they'll see it. So the party at the moment is literally riven in two. And you've got, in fact, it's more than that now. You've got the Westminster faction who think all the MSPs are idiots. And you've got the pro-Sturgeon faction, which is basically Humza and a few others. And that's rapidly dwindling. And then you've got presumably Kate Forbes at the head of the rebellious types who want to take over and get Humza out. So the SNP's in desperate trouble right now. And meanwhile, the Greens are laughing at them, and Humza's doing everything he can to...
it's unbelievable. I'll come back to you in a second, Mary, but just it's this idea that, how many hated business policies do we have? Let's try and count them. We have the bottle deposit return scheme. We've got rent, as you know, David is a landlord, absolutely crazy, and Mary's talked about loads of times. We've got these, all ideas. What's that? Sorry,
talking about the Greens.
Yes, fire. Oh yes. Okay.
They're basically causing all these crises and all these different sectors all across, all the transport things that we have. Trying to get rid of cars and so on.
And then I've got this fishing industry, HPMA, which we're not going to go into in detail tonight.
We'll do that another night.
But this is the kind of thing. They're sticking their fingers and all this stuff and really riling up everyone. Well, it's really terrible.
Well, this is what it comes down to, though, guys. What it comes down to is basically that, as we know, the Greens are against economic prosperity.
Right. We don't want the economy to grow. That's exactly right.
It says in their manifesto they are against economic prosperity. It's unbelievable. And then you've got Humza Yousaf, who's standing up and saying that he wants to do a reset with business. But if he wants to do that, he's going to have to start working for industries and not against them. And basically, he has to decide, is he going to be pro-business and against, or is he going to be, against economic prosperity? So he's either choosing the Greens or he's choosing business, but he can't have both.
Well, he's chosen the Greens. So he's chosen the Greens. He's reconfirmed the House Agreement.
Well, he's going against quite a few of their policies at the moment.
Right.
So
maybe it's time.
He's saying he's choosing the Greens, but maybe he's actually going to work them out.
Yeah, but what I think would then happen is the Greens, your party is pretty smart. He's going to try and undermine what is going on. Now we've got a lot. That was a great segment there, Mary. We have. We'll be discussing this over the next few weeks. Is Humza Yousaf any idea of business? He never actually even worked in business.
That's true.
Anyway, so hardly anyone in that administration has actually worked in business. So it's very unlikely that they care about that. They're into politics. But the strange thing that they're into is they're into politics that people hate, which is a bit weird. But, normally you've been into politics, you say to people, I've got this great idea and you all love this. And it's going to really improve our lives and stuff like that. And people don't think about the cost or the other things about it. But these are coming up with actually bad ideas, terrible ideas.
It's as if they're trying to sabotage themselves.
It's absolutely shocking. It's really terrible. Right. Okay. Coming up, it's going to be Zoomer of the Week. Before that, there's a few things you can do to support the show. Number one is to subscribe to this podcast. Not podcast anymore. Subscribe on YouTube. That really helps us a lot. And we've actually been getting a lot more views on YouTube because of your support for us. It's been really great. You can, of course, make a donation as well. Just go to our website. That would really help. Or you could buy one of these great T-shirts. They may take our lives, but they will never take our camper vans. That's all good.
There are a lot of different, things we'd like to do as the majority, and things that, we think we can work against nationalism and so on. But we do need your help. We do need donations to do that.
That's great. Thank you very much for that, Mary. We're going to run over a few, because so much to talk about. We're going to run over a few minutes tonight. We hope to have you with us. But now, coming up, it is the highlight of the week, the moment we have all been waiting for. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay.
Right. Well, I've got a bit of a rant. Here it goes. My Zoomer of the Week is all those journalists who are now trying to claim they knew all along there was a problem with the SNP. No, you don't get away with it that easily. They were willing to turn a blind eye when it suited their goals, when they thought that they could use the nationalists and SNP and Nicola Sturgeon to break up the UK. They were with them, right? When they thought that they could use the Nicola Sturgeon to say something against Brexit or against Boris, they were right there. Yeah, this is great. We'll just write this thing down. And not knowing, of course, well, they knew as well that they were being used by the nationalists as well. But now they're revealed to be utter charlatans, as the rest of us always knew, because we knew.
Yep.
All this stuff, that how they were being used and abused, and how this codependent relationship was going on. And now they're trying to claim that they're shocked. They're shocked to find out that their crass nationalism is actually nationalism. They're shocked to find out that the people who put party loyalty over competence are secretive and incompetent. And they're shocked to find out that people with low morals and access to funds are scamming their own supporters. I mean, and they're shocked about all the scandals that somehow they've just noticed after not noticing them for 8 years. I don't think so. They don't get to say, told you so. We get to say, we told you so.
Right.
That's the difference. They don't get to distance themselves from this disaster because they made it happen. You, a journalist, you made it happen because you turned a blind eye when it suited you. And more importantly, you didn't question them about what they were actually doing, quite willing to go and say, what's your opinion on Brexit and Boris, Nicola? And go to Alex Salmond now. Okay, well, what's your opinion, Humza Yousaf? Never what is this ridiculous UGI plan you have, Alex? You know, what is this 40% tax and you've got proposed in luxury items, and not even talking about that. It's always somewhere else. So, you know, these journalists, they don't get to claim that they're virtuous now because they've seen the light. Where were they when it mattered? Where were they when these people were getting into power? They were voting them in. They were supporting them, and they weren't questioning them. They were writing articles about them, supporting them, and even on our side saying, even when they failed, they were saying, well, isn't there a better nationalism? And so this is what the way we're at. This is nationalism. This is how it ends up. You know, we hid it all. That's what David was saying about there. He hid all this stuff.
Yep.
WheeshtForIndy. Well, you know, all this incompetence, scandal, hate, division, all papered over so that they could get their own aim. So I think it'd be much better if these journalists just admitted that they were working with them all along and stopped the act. Because, you know, that's just, it's sickening to see them say, oh yeah, we knew this was going on. You're like, well, if you knew, well, why didn't you say it?
They're total hypocrites.
Yes.
Exactly.
Anyway, and
you've been waiting a while to say that, haven't you, Mark?
Yes.
You knew the time was coming and you've been waiting.
Oh, I have said it before. People like Neil Mackay claiming not to be a nationalist while supporting nationalist policies, Jerry Hassan as well, some others, notable mentions that are coming along. You know, if you follow our Twitter and so feeds, we see that, but just this hypocrisy, and they'll turn on to the next thing. Next thing, they'll be like, oh yeah, we all supported Labour. And we know, terrible nationalism.
Exactly.
And you're like supposed to be like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody we've been talking about today, Julie Birchall, the author, the journalist and author, was sent something she'd written. Blessedly, she's one of the few journalists who didn't ever fall for the Sturgeon charm. And she actually wrote in her Spectator piece the day that Sturgeon resigned, how such an intellectually rigorous and rebellious people as the Scots could have chosen to live under the woke Stasi of wee Jimmy Cranky for so long will baffle historians in years to come. And this is the kind of point I make. Scotland's not a nationalist country. It never has been. Never. I can't believe Scotland has embraced nationalism and identity politics so readily. I really cannot believe it still. But
well, it's the help of these journalists, certainly. And I'm not just pointing out this example here, and this is a little bit to the side of it, but it's the thing. This is from Wings Over Scotland. Ironically, if the SNP had actually done anything to trigger a vote of some kind on independence, nobody would have been looking for any missing money.
Very true.
You're like, and that's supposed to be a good point. That, you know, that if they had actually got independence, that all this scandal would just be washed away. I don't think so. I think it's ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's not. You don't get a pass on this. And the journalists.
That's immoral, actually.
It really is. And the other one's Kevin McKenna. Here it is. Here. This is. It's ridiculous. Look at this. It's time to face the truth. SNP has taken us for a ride. How dare you?
Exactly. As the old Lone Ranger joke and Tonto joke goes, what do you mean, we white man? Are you kidding? Who's us?
How dare you say that? You promoted them all this time for years and years and years. And then you say they've taken us for a ride. Wait a minute. So you didn't do your job? You weren't a journalist and you didn't go investigate them? You turned a blind eye? It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. So it is a rant. Yes.
No, you're right,
anyway,
you're right.
that's it.
McKenna particularly has some very, very dodgy history of saying ridiculous things. I'll tell you about it one day. So no.
Right. Well, we can have that in another thing anyway.
Yep.
Right. Next up.
Well said, Mark. Indeed. Good round.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Mary. Right, I'm sorry, it's actually David.
Is it me? Okay, cool. I'm here. Right. Okay, you might be getting deja vu here, guys, but my nomination for Zoomer of the Week this week is Margaret Ferrier. Now, last week, it wasn't Margaret Ferrier, although she featured highly, because my Zoomer last week was Joanna Cherry for in favour and backing of Margaret Ferrier. But this week, Ferrier has let herself down yet again. A quick reminder of how she's become infamous. 2019, she was elected the SNP MP for Rutherglen Hamilton West, and then in 2020, the height of COVID alarm, she travelled on a train from London to Glasgow after being told she had COVID. I mean, appalling, genuinely appalling stuff. She admitted it more or less immediately. She was convicted at Glasgow Sheriff Court 2 years later, because that's what it was like in COVID times. Nothing happened for 2 years. She was convicted of recklessly exposing the public to the risk of infection, illness, and death. She was sentenced to some community service. 6 months on, although there was no need, as I've said from the start, there was no need for the House of Common Standards Committee to wait for her criminal conviction. They didn't need to do that at all because she'd already admitted what she did. But wait, they did. 6 months after her conviction, the House of Common Standards Committee recommended she be suspended for 30 days. Now, this would exceed the threshold at which a recall petition could be called, which would mean a by-election, which would mean her leaving the House of Commons. And so already all major parties in Scotland are jockeying for position to fight that by-election. This week, we heard the most predictable news of the whole debacle. She's decided to appeal the House of Common Standards Committee decision. How do you like that for cheek?
She is despicable.
It's quite, I mean, she's going to get mud thrown at her in the street shortly. This is just appalling. 2.5 years after doing it, 6 months after being convicted, how many hiatuses does the woman need? And now she's saying at this late stage, no, I'm not going to bother. She's only got about a year or so left in Parliament anyway.
It's all part of the pension plan.
Exactly. It's just it could not be clearer. She's clinging on by her fingertips to the rock face. Absolutely.
It's just an example of the thing. It's like, did you ever think? I mean, did you ever see an newspaper article saying how awful she was before any of this happened?
Actually, yeah. That's the
thing. It's like she's pretty much a nobody. I think she was just like a leafleter or something like that, and she was elevated to this position in the House of Parliament in Westminster. She's useless.
Yeah, exactly.
And then she proceeded to screw that up as well, and then she just keeps going on and on and on. It's like, have some dignity and get out the way and let people who are actually a proper fight go on there. For the seat.
Absolutely right. So no, dread. I mean, this could not be worse. Somebody said in the week, I bet she appeals now. I said, surely not. And, oh God, how can
she has no shame whatsoever.
No shame, no self-awareness, just utterly. And this is why, if people ever say, why is the turnout so low in elections? That's why, because you're being asked to vote for absolute non-entities who simply are, just inadequate in every facet.
Wow, she'll be toughed out anyway.
So we toughed out, thank goodness for that. So that's why they're utterly appalling, and even getting worse. Margaret Ferrier is my nomination for Zoomer of the Week.
Yeah, so of course, it's a classic. It's a classic of the genre.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, we will be moving on, and next up is going to be Mary. So see you in a second.
Okay, well, I'll be quick. My nomination for Zoomer of the Week is Ian Blackford. He was on TV this week saying categorically the SNP is solvent. Have you got the video, Mark?
I'm not sure if I've got it because I think it's moved on to something else. Hold on. Oh, no. That's a different thing altogether.
Okay, not to worry.
Sorry. It took me too long to get it back. Sorry.
Okay, so Ian Blackford said that the SNP is in robust health financially and can meet all its obligations and liabilities going forward. Now, I'm not quite sure how Ian Blackford seems to have better information than Colin Beattie, because Colin Beattie, who is the party's former treasurer, he reportedly told the NEC, the National Executive Committee, that the SNP was having difficulty in balancing the books due to the reduction in membership and donors, and that a potential by-election in Rutherglen and Hamilton West would put it under financial pressure. But Ian Blackford doesn't seem to think he knows more about the money than Colin Beattie. So
I've seen a few of that. You see a few things where people are like, yes, we're doing fine. The membership is great. And support for independence is steady, which it's not. But they're all on there trying to give that impression. It's quite crazy, really. Absolutely. Blackford just one of those.
He's an idiot.
Okay, that's Zoomer even, perhaps.
Okay, I get to choose this week, guys.
Well, you choosing, Mary? Okay.
I'm choosing this week, and I am going to choose the charlatan journalists.
Yes.
Because I know Mark feels very strongly about this, and it's been a long time coming. Margaret Ferrier should keep coming up again and again.
Exactly.
But this week, it's going to be the Zoomers are going to be the charlatan journalists.
Yeah, very good.
It's just shocking. They just sit
there. Sad bunch.
They sit there and they pontificate about their stuff. They ignore what's important, and then they try and gaslight you into thinking that they're the ones that are actually aggrieved. Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, well, okay. Thank you for
well done, Mark.
Thank you.
Very good.
Anyway, Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for being on the show with us tonight and a wee bit longer. It's been really great to have you with us.
And thank you, everyone, for all your comments.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, excellent input as always. And sorry for, was it Sean Geddes? I think it said I sounded like I was sympathetic to Humza and everybody earlier, or whoever it was. No, I'm not at all, mate. Believe me, I've got no sympathy at all.
Just, find the voodoo doll, buy some more pins.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, I'll leave you with thought of the week. The Scottish Parliament was set up for two reasons: to solidify the Labour Party's power in Scotland and to stop nationalism. You don't have to be a mouse or a man to know that the best laid plans, and these weren't the best laid plans, ended up on the floor. If any party should get rid of the Scottish Parliament, it should actually be Labour. They're the ones who lost the most from this whole thing. Anyway, that's just the thought. Maybe that will be a discussion that we'll be just talking about a little bit more on the following week's broadcast. We will be back again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. We are so happy to have you with us. So many people chatting today and hundreds of you watching. It's really great to see the show grow with your help. So it's good night from me.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, guys. Thanks a lot again for tuning in. Brilliant.
All right. Take care.